Hey guys, what's up? Today's video was requested by Iroha Hanasaku around a month ago and now I'm finally doing it. By the way, that's a great username. I like Hanasaku Iroha too. I will be covering 3 main points in this video. The first one is how to spot a fake friend, the second one is my experience of having fake friends, and the third one is how I dealt with them. So in order to deal with fake friends, first you must be able to identify them. I found an article that perfectly covers all the major traits of a fake friend. You can find a link to it in the description box below. If you don't feel like reading it, I'm going to sum it up for you. It is stated in the article that there are 7 ways to spot a fake friend. Number 1. They guilt trip you to hang out with them. They may say things like, "How come we don't hang out anymore?" Or, "Why aren't you in my life?" They use sentences which imply that you are guilty for not hanging out with them. Usually, if your friend wants to hang out with you, they'll just say something like, "Hey, wanna get some coffee with me sometime?" Not dramatic things like, "Why are you never there for me?" Number 2. They make promises they never keep. They make plans with you, but in the end, they never show up. And they always manage to come up with exaggerated excuses because they don't want to take responsibility. Number 3. They expect you to drop everything so you can cater to their needs. They always want you to fix their problems for them and act as if their problems are your problems too. They don't care that you also have a life and problems of your own. And they want you to always be there to handle everything for them. Number 4. They always make it all about them. They never acknowledge your accomplishment and always turn it into a competition. If you tell them that you've got yourself a job, they will tell you that they just got promoted. If you say that you are going on a holiday out of town, they will say that they are going on a holiday abroad. If you say that you've bought an iPhone 6, they will say that they've bought an iPhone 6 Plus. They never want to lose to you and are never happy for your accomplishment. Number 5. They never give you a genuine compliment and always manage to put insults at the end of every compliment. For example, they might see a great picture of you on your Instagram, and they will say something like, "Oh, you look great in that photo. Must be because of the expensive camera and great filter." Or when they see an article you wrote the other day, they will say, "That's a great article you wrote. Who helped you write it?" They find ways to mask their insults as compliments. Number 6. They always gossip about others. If they are constantly talking about other people, just imagine what they are saying behind your back. It's one thing to vent about someone, but it's another thing entirely to tear people apart when their backs are turned. Number 7. They only see you as a means to an end. They see your generosity and take advantage of it. A true friend recognizes your kindness and returns it 100-fold, because it's something that they admire and not envy. I'm sure we all have met that one friend before. I personally have dealt with that kind of friendship, and that's why I would like to share how I managed to do that. Hopefully you guys will find my experience helpful to you. Now let me tell you my story first. So I used to be friends with a bunch of popular kids back in my first year of middle school. At first it was fun, because I had a group where I belonged in, and I didn't have to spend my days at school by myself. But as time went by, I began noticing things that made me uncomfortable to be with them. Firstly, everyone in my group of friends talked about each other behind each other's back. But once they were face to face with one another, they acted as if nothing was wrong and as if they were best friends, even though they always badmouthed each other in secret. Secondly, I felt used and I felt like they were taking advantage of me. They would copy my homework that I spent so much time working on, and they would cheat on tests and ask me to share my answers with them. And I couldn't refuse because I was afraid that if I did, they would stop being friends with me. And that already shows how fake they were. Thirdly, they were a bad influence on me. They made me skip classes with them. They made me cheat on tests even though I didn't benefit from it. They made me break the rules and so on and so on. I have always been very afraid of getting caught breaking the rules. So you can imagine how terrified I felt every time they made me do all those things with them. Fourthly, they always found some reasons to make fun of me. I always followed the dress code and I wore my uniform the way I was supposed to. And they kept calling me out for that. They called me a nerd, and FYI, back then being a nerd was really uncool. Unlike now where everyone thinks that being a nerd is really trendy and Tumblr. Anyway, they called me a nerd because they claimed that I wore my tie too tightly around my neck and that my shirt was way too big for my body, even though I wore the right size for me, and they were the ones who wore shirts that were too small for them. And they also told me to lower my skirt to my hips, because back then, hipster skirts were cool, even though we were supposed to wear skirts around our waist. Aside from the way I dressed, they would also make fun of the way my hair looked. I had short shaggy hairstyle back then, and they would say that my hair looked like a tree. When I tried tying it up, they would say that my hair looked like a fountain. They always found something wrong with me no matter what I did. Oh, and they also liked to make fun of the way I talked. I used to speak using formal language and people thought that it was weird and lame because everybody in school used slang words. My friends tried making me use slangs, but no matter how hard I tried, I still couldn't use those words properly because I was just uncool. It was a tiring cycle. My friends would make fun of me, then they would laugh it off afterwards and claim that they were only joking. But deep down, I knew that they weren't actually joking because, after all, jokes are supposed to be funny, right? Well, they didn't see me laughing. Now, the reason I'm telling you guys all this is not to make you guys feel sorry for me because that is the last thing I would want from you guys. I'm telling you my backstory because otherwise my tips wouldn't make much sense if I just list them one by one without explaining my situation first. Okay, so the first step I took into dealing with those fake friends of mine was that I confronted the leader, aka the Regina George of the group. I told her that I wasn't comfortable with the way they treated me and that I wanted them to stop. But of course, she only laughed it off and instead told me to loosen up because they were just joking around and meant no harm. Their actions spoke louder than words though. Their mouths said that they were kidding, but their actions said otherwise. So seeing that having a heart-to-heart talk with them brought me nowhere, I decided to take the next step. I began making friends with people outside my old group of friends. Basically, there were 3 different groups or cliques in my class. If this were the bully game, then we would have the popular preps at the top, the regular non-clique students in the middle, and the nerds at the very bottom. I was the Jimmy Hopkins who didn't know where I belonged in. I began branching out by befriending the regular non-clique students first. It also helped that my teacher rearranged our seats so I was seated near those non-clique students, which made it easier for me to be friends with them. After I became friends with them, I branched out even more by befriending the nerds. Now this was the tipping point for me because after I became their friends, I felt like I finally found where I belonged. We talked about anime every day, we never skipped class, we followed the dress code, and we managed to have fun without having to break the rules all the time. It wasn't that hard for me to finally stop being friends with my old group of friends because I had made so many new friends outside that circle, so losing them wasn't a big deal for me anymore. I didn't matter to them anyway because once I was friends with the nerds and once I refused to lend them my homework and cheat with them on our tests, they didn't feel like being friends with me anymore and I was perfectly fine with that. If you asked me how I felt after I stopped being friends with those fake friends, I felt free and I became excited to go to school every day. I used to not like going to school because I knew that I had to skip classes, I had to lend my so-called friends my homework, and I had to do things that I didn't want to do just to get their approval. In the end, it didn't matter to me that I wasn't one of the popular kids anymore. I didn't like being popular anyway, and I didn't like being trapped in a toxic friendship with those fake people who claim to be my friends. So to recap, what I did were, first I confronted my friends and told them how I felt about the way they treated me. After they brushed me off, I began making new friends outside my circle of friends, so I wouldn't have to rely on and be attached to my old group of friends. Finally, I cut off old ties with my old friends. Well, it was actually the other way around because they stopped being friends with me once they found out that I was actually a huge nerd. Well, whatever, it's their loss. So yeah, that was my solution and also my story. I hope you guys got something out of them. If you guys are currently trapped in a friendship with a bunch of fake friends, then I suggest you try finding new friends who are genuine and treat you the way you are supposed to be treated because trust me, those fake friends aren't worth your time. Maybe you feel like you can handle them just fine now, but if you keep giving in to their demands all the time, there will come a day where you just can't take it anymore and you will just blow up. Now before that time comes, it's best to stop being friends with them and start befriending other people who respect you and see you as a friend instead of a tool. So that's all from me today guys. Thank you very much for watching this video and thank you for those of you who have subscribed to me. If you haven't, then be sure to click on the shiny subscribe button below. Don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends if you enjoyed watching it, and I will see you on my next one. Have a nice day everyone. Bye bye!